This is Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, a podcast and radio program presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan.
Driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
And now, here he is, your host, Jim Ervin.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Time Signatures. I'm your host, Jim Ervin, and today's guest is another one of those people who simply have one of the coolest jobs on the planet, at least in my opinion. Now, I could list off a ton of items related to what our guest does on a daily basis, but let me just give you a quick thumbnail sketch, if you will. Now, imagine being responsible for housing, digitizing, and maintaining anything and everything related to the blues that crosses your desk. Imagine being responsible for such items as sheet music, concert tickets, recordings, record label business files, and lots of 33s, 45s, and 78s. Yeah, he has all of that. As the Blues Archive at the University of Mississippi celebrates its 40th anniversary, I am honored to welcome a man that has become a good friend of mine over the last several months. And I'll warn you that what you're about to do is you're actually going to be learning some really cool stuff in this episode. Head of Special Collections, Blues Curator, University of Mississippi Professor, Greg Johnson. I'm pleased to welcome you to Time Signatures. How are you, sir?
Man, thanks, Art. That was a great introduction. I'm doing really well. We're right on the cusp of our 40th anniversary, and we're really excited about all the work that's happened here and looking forward to another 40 years beyond this. Yeah, it's an exciting time right now. I've installed a new exhibit that
Nice.
officially opens on Friday the 13th. Ooh. So, born under a bad sign. We got
Did you notice my shirt?
I did. Yeah,
I
got
prepped for the
crossroads.
interview.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Definitely.
Well, Greg, I want to dive in here and get at it because we've got a lot of ground to cover.
Mhm.
How long have you been with the University of Mississippi, and how long with the archive?
So I started here August 16th, 2002. And then after I started, I realized, wait, that date sounds familiar. Oh, that's the date Elvis died. That's the date Robert Johnson
Wow.
died. That's the date Aretha Franklin died. There are multiple.
Wow.
I'm like, So I always get a little superstitious around that date. I try not to stand on any ladders when I'm at work or anything. So yeah, I've been here 22 years now.
Nice.
I was curator of the Blues Archive solely up until 2 years ago when I became head of all of archives and special collections, including the Blues Archive.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, there's so many cool aspects to the Blues Archive, but I want to back up to the beginning. Where did that all begin? And most importantly, why? I'm sure that you're going to tell me a little bit about William Ferris and his relationships. Had some incredible things, but I want to hear the backstory on this.
Sure. A lot of times it's the easy thing to point to is when B.B. King donated his personal record collection over 1982 and 83, he gave about 10,000 sound recordings, LPs, 78s, 45s, even some Edison wax cylinders in the collection. Yeah. That firmly established the need for a blues archive. In 83, the university acquired Living Blues magazine. It started in Chicago in 1970, and the university took over publication in 83. So the convergence of those two pivotal things, the university publishing Living Blues, taking over the publication of Living Blues, plus B.B. King donating his record collection, that established the need for us to create such a thing as the Blues Archive. Now, these were all the direct result of Bill Ferris, who was the first director for the Center for the Study of Southern Culture here on the campus of the University of Mississippi. He had seen how important it was for institutions like Tulane to have, create the Hogan Jazz Archive and really collect very focused collecting of jazz music, particularly New Orleans jazz, in their collections. And, jazz had been considered as a serious study. Not that long, that many years. I
Sure.
mean, even when I was in college in the late 90s, I remember a music history professor I had, he was telling me, I think when he was at LSU in the 40s, he got in trouble for practicing jazz in the practice rooms on campus,
Wow.
So it's not, jazz hasn't been taken seriously as a study, an academic study. Not, it wasn't that long ago that it was taken seriously, and then much later for blues. So Bill Ferris had this vision of, doing such a thing for blues music. So his vision and perseverance and uh, hard work really helped establish this. His connections with people like, B.B. King and others helped bring these collections here. But we can go back even further. Now, this is also another Bill Ferris connection. There were some collections that were brought in the 70s, particularly the Kenneth Goldstein collection.
Wow.
Dr. Goldstein was the first professor of folklore at the University of Pennsylvania. He was also one of Bill Ferris's major professors. And so Dr. Goldstein had done a lot of early recordings, the first recordings of Reverend Gary Davis, did a lot of early recordings of Sonny Terry, and other blues artists on like Riverside, Stinson, Prestige, some of
Sure.
those albums, those labels, I mean. And so we got his collection here to the university in the 70s. It primarily consists of a lot of Anglo-Celtic field recordings of folk music and folklore, but
Wow.
there's a lot of blues in there as well. But if we go back even further, well before a blues archive was established, there were some librarians in the 60s who created something called the Mississippi Collection.
Oh
They were
man.
collecting all of these things by Mississippi authors, so books by Mississippians, but also they were collecting sound recordings of Mississippians, including a lot of blues in those collections. So the library had already been collecting blues, decades before we officially created the Blues Archive. And then if we go way back, there was a student here named Howard Odom. He was studying like classics and he took a sociology course. And during that, he got really interested in African American music. And so he made some field recordings around 1907 or 1908 onto Edison wax cylinders.
Okay.
He went all around Lafayette County. Sorry for all those people in South Louisiana listening. We mispronounce it here in where Oxford is. I apologize, but we pronounce it Lafayette here. He went all around the county, collecting examples of Black folk music. And it's clear from the themes he
Wow.
and his research partner, Guy Johnson at Chapel Hill, themes they wrote down that what he had recorded were examples of blues or a proto blues type music. We're not sure because the cylinders don't exist. They, at some point, over 100 years ago, they were presumably lost, either
Oh
between here
man.
or Chapel Hill, somewhere, no one knows.
Oh,
But that would be a holy grail to find something like
indeed.
that early. I mean, before commercial blues was really
Yeah.
recorded.
Oh yeah.
I mean, wow. But so that's a little history. But so even though these collections were sort of generated initially by work done at the Center for the Study of Southern Culture, the shorthand term, we just call it Southern Studies rather than the long formal name.
Sure.
It was always part of the university libraries because it makes sense if you're creating an archive. We already had the Department of Archives and Special Collections here. Then the Blues Archive was established. And then in 2002, the Blues Archive merged with Archives and Special Collections. So essentially all
Okay.
of the different archival units on campus, for the most part, with few exceptions, are part of this one unit.
And how cool is that the Blues Archive is housed and was founded at the University of Mississippi. Um, I don't believe I've ever heard of another blues archive anywhere else in the country. And furthermore, I mean, it was born out of the birthplace of the blues. I mean, how cool is that?
Absolutely. I mean, the Chicago Public Library has had a sort of Chicago Blues Archive kind of
Yep.
collection. It's not as big as this one for some time.
And they're specific to Chicago too.
Yeah, that's right. And there are other institutions that do collect blues. I mean, Chapel Hill has some really great blues holdings in their collections, but it's not specific to focusing on blues. And
Okay.
like the Library of Congress has more of any subject matter than anybody else, pretty much. But yeah, it does make sense for such a thing to exist in Mississippi, and particularly where we are in Oxford, Mississippi. We're kind of right in this, we're at the southern part of what we call the North Mississippi Hill Country region,
Right.
that, is associated with artists like R.L. Burnside and Junior Kimbrough
Yes.
and all of their extended
Yes.
families. And then, we're outside of the Delta, but we're very close to it. So it's kind of we're at a point where we're almost at a convergence of where the Delta meets the Hill Country.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Very cool. Now, I've got to believe BB's been to visit. Have you had a chance to speak with
Yeah.
him, and what was that like?
Yeah, it was really cool. In 2004, this was at our second Blues Today symposium that we'd put on. We made him an honorary professor of Southern Studies. Um,
Nice.
and I got to interview him on stage in front of a lot of blues scholars and fans. And,
Wow.
when that happened, because I'm like, oh man, I'm talking to B.B. King, and there are all of these like, you know, really serious scholars out there. So I was nervous. I was more nervous about speaking in front of them, but and BB's bus was running late, and when he got there, he met him backstage, and he was just so down to earth, just such a gentleman. Immediately put me at ease, and I felt calmer. And then we went out. I had a lot of formal questions I had, but we ended up kind of throwing them out. We just had a conversation. It was a lot of fun asking him a lot of questions about his collection that he had donated.
Nice.
No, I learned a lot from, in his collection. There's a lot of blues and jazz as you would expect,
Sure.
but there's a lot of stuff outside of those areas. I mean, there are classical recordings in there. There are comedy albums. There's a recording of War of the Worlds, the
Oh,
radio
wow.
broadcast. There are about 40 to 50 foreign language courses on LP, like, how to speak Serbo-Croatian, how to speak Mandarin Chinese, a
Wow.
Yiddish language course. And he told me when he went on his first world tour, he wanted to learn a few phrases in the native language of whatever country he was performing in. So that's pretty cool. He also has some odd titles in there, like Morse code for pilots. And what in the world is this? Yeah, he was studying to get his pilot's license. And he said while
No
he was on
kidding.
tour, he would go, he'd get back to the hotel room after a gig, and he would study and prepare for the exam by listening to some of these records. It's really cool stuff in there.
Wow.
Actually,
Very.
the artist he has the most recordings of anyone of any genre is Django Reinhardt, which I found pretty fascinating. He just apparently he loved, yeah, Django's guitar playing, and yeah.
Wow. Remind me, I will send you a link from one of my episodes, one of my early episodes, which is housed on your website
Hmm.
currently from season
Absolutely.
one. And thank you. It's such an honor to be a part of that. We'll talk more about that in a minute.
Hmm.
But one of the episodes, we had a gentleman on that was with the Capital Area Blues Society at the time. He was, I believe, president. And he tells the story about how he went to meet BB and welcome him, gave him a gift basket and the whole 9 yards. BB kept him there for almost 2 hours.
Wow.
Okay. So yeah, when you talk about him being a gentleman, the story's great. I'll have to send you a link so you can check it out. But I want to flip the page a little bit. And first of all, let me mention to you, I am a subscriber to the Living Blues magazine before I knew that it was part of UMISS. But I was reading an article in the Blues Archive recently, and help me out. Is this accurate? You've got like 100,000 sound recordings, 200,000 photographs, and more than 34,000 books, periodicals, and newsletters. including extensive holdings of concert tickets, concert programs, and clothing like Blues Festival gear. That's really some undertaking, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, those numbers are, I think, mostly accurate. Yeah.
Wow.
Um, it's a lot, to manage all of, I mean, that's pretty vast collection. But it's not just me working here. There's a whole team of cataloging librarians.
I was going to say there has to be.
Yeah, the catalogers, they're the ones that do all of the work, putting all of the information into the catalog to make everything searchable.
Wow.
Me and I have some staff and student workers. I mean, our student workers, we couldn't get this done without their help. You know,
Yeah.
um, I have a student out right now working on creating an inventory for a collection of 78, 78 RPM recordings. So, this is, we have people in-house work and outsourcing the digitization of a lot of our holdings. For a lot of our photographic collections, this is work that like our staff plus our student workers do a lot of that. There are
Wow.
times you're scanning things, creating the metadata to describe it, who's in the photo, where was it taken, when was it taken, who's the photographer, all of that type of information. We're currently, I got a very large grant from the National Historical Publications and Records Commission, NHPRC, a year ago. And this is allowing us to digitize our non-commercial audiovisual holdings. So we have sent off, I think, 17 pallets of
Oh,
material that's
man.
being digitized now. We've received the first batch of digitized files back, and
Oh,
literally
wow.
today, we set two of our new student workers up, two graduate assistants up, going through these files, the initial thing, checking to make sure everything that we got back is accurate, checking, doing quality control work. Then we start creating all the metadata to describe them. And
Sure.
then there's another process of creating transcriptions, ADA accessible transcriptions of every spoken word thing in the collections, and that's an undertaking
Man.
because
Yes, it is.
nowadays, like, AI has gotten really good speech to text type technologies. They've gotten incredibly good and fast and efficient,
Yeah.
but they're not good at understanding old, thick Southern Mississippi accents.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a
I've
lot of
noticed
this,
that
it takes human intervention.
my daughter, God bless her, is the person that does my work with the transcripts. And I've had to help her, and because there's a few people that I've had on that have them thick Southern Mississippi type accents, and she had a hard time understanding. Of course, the generation of the transcript wasn't perfect, and yeah, so I understand those challenges.
Oh yeah.
Um, Now you also have some interviews and even a podcast or two on the archive, including the only currently produced podcast, which is Time Signatures with Jim Ervin. And by the way, once again, I wanted to say thank you for having us. It's an honor to be there. Um, but for those that are not aware of what the archive has to offer, what can you find there? What all can you search there? Is it all online? Do you have physical items as well available at the University of Mississippi?
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Um, so let me give you just kind of an overview of the collection, and
Sure.
then I'll tell you, drill down to how people can search this and access it.
Yep.
The listing you gave earlier of sound recordings and photos, posters, Blues Festival T-shirts and hats, all of that stuff. Yeah, that's exactly the type of things that we do collect here. It's all physically available to anyone to come into the archive. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 are our hours that we're open to the public. You don't have to be affiliated with the University of Mississippi. It's completely open to anyone. We get
Nice.
visitors from all around the world coming
I'll
here.
bet.
You don't have to be doing serious research either. You can just be a blues fan and show up. Now, we always have exhibit spaces with some blues things on display. But but we're an art research archive first, and the museum kind of aspect is sort of a secondary aspect to what we do. So the vast majority of any of our holdings are in what we call closed stacks. It's ones where like you can't come in and just start browsing stuff and pulling things off the shelf as the public.
Right, right.
You request things of us at our front desk, and we'll go pull those for you. You can also send us an email and request things ahead of time. We can have them ready for you to look at when you get here. Because we just don't have space to have, several 100,000 sound recordings all displayed at the same time,
Right, right.
But we have ways people can search through our online catalog to look for the commercially produced things like commercial sound recordings and books, things of that nature. But we also have for our archival collections, what we call finding aids. That's an archival term for an inventory of collections. So where you
Okay.
can pull that up and it will give you all of the information about who donated this collection, a general synopsis of it, and then it gets down to more granular detail of item level in many cases, what's in this collection. So you can come and request, you could say, for instance, I would love to see the Sheldon Harris collection, boxes 63 through 84, something like that. And we'll pull those out for you. And you could look at all of his research files and things that he was using when he wrote his, seminal work, Blues Who's Who, in
So you can
1978.
actually go in and see the physical papers and whatnot.
Yes, all of that's available to the public to come in and
Wow.
see physically here. Now, a lot of people, they can't travel here for, maybe just, they don't have the time to make the trip or the resources. We do have a lot of things online. But the vast majority of our collections are not online. A lot of people would love to be able to access all of the audio recordings we have over the web, but just because we have physical items here doesn't mean we own the rights to those items. So the vast majority of commercially recorded blues, they're still all under copyright control.
Oh, gotcha.
Even
Okay.
all of Robert Johnson's recordings. I mean, everybody thinks, oh, those are all old recordings. No, those rights are still owned by the record industry, and so I can't put them out for free for anybody to access online
Sure.
that way.
Sure.
So, but you can access them here in the archive. And then a lot of things that we do have rights to, or they're now in the public domain. A lot of those materials are online and you can access those remotely.
Very nice. And overall, what is the group of people look like that come in and access the archive? Is like you said, I know you said there are people that are big time researchers and stuff like that. Do you see a lot of just normal fans like you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
just coming in to check things out?
Yeah, often, we get most of the just blues fan traffic
Sure.
in near a blues festival time. If there's a festival in the region,
Okay.
that's when people are often traveling, and they're like, well, while we're here on our way back home, let's go and see the blues archive.
Very
Um,
cool.
but we get on campus, I speak to classes all the time in different subject areas. There are classes in the School of Music here who come over, and I'll do a blues talk, like a blues 101 type presentation to those groups a lot of times. Classes from Southern Studies, they're over here. I've had some classes doing work on like blues literature, like analyzing lyrics and things like that. I've spoken to groups like that. And then also a lot of English as a second language, like intensive English programs here. A lot of the instructors there sometimes because we'll get sometimes an intensive group, maybe like for 1 or 2 months, there'll be a group of students from another country or several countries that are coming here really working on English. And
Very
the
cool.
instructors really want them to, in addition to learning that, learn about some of Mississippi's history and culture, including the blues, and they'll bring their classes over to learn in those ways.
Now, I wanted to ask you, when you and I spoke about having time signatures put up in the
Mhm.
Blues Archive, you talked about ways that it would be used. I'd like you to talk about that a little bit. In what ways will these interviews be available and used, for papers and different things like
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, now having all of these in our institutional repository here, it's where we manage all of our digital collections, including
Sure.
time signatures. Um, that is, so it's now available to the entire world. People can access these. They can listen to your interviews you've done with so many wonderful artists, and that's available for them to, for their research. Somebody's writing an article on somebody you recently interviewed.
Yeah.
I could see this program being super useful to them. I think um, I'm I'm hopeful that there's a Master's of Fine Arts and MFA program here in documentary expression, part of the Southern Studies program. I think your program serves as a good model for how to conduct an interview,
Thank you.
how to do this type of conversation with people, and I'm hopeful that some of those students are going to be utilizing it in that way, using your program as a template for
Wow.
what's done right. Yeah.
That I didn't even think of something like that.
Mhm.
That's mind-boggling.
Yeah, because
But
there's two
yeah,
parts here. I mean, there's the content, but there's also the way you've done it. You've
yeah,
um, and in today's age with technologies like Zoom, it's a real game changer.
it's a beautiful thing, baby.
Yeah, because
Well, I mean, it's
not everybody
the
has gas money to travel everywhere to
yeah.
do
Well,
in-person interviews.
and the other thing is what I like most about it is I was able to interview, for example, Jennifer Noble in London. And we sat down on a Sunday. It was morning my time. It was early afternoon her time. And all you got to do is be able to set a time to have the discussion, and you can speak to somebody around the world. It's incredible.
Yeah,
So, Greg, I wanted to ask you. We talked quite a bit about the 40th celebration up here at the top of the program. Any other big plans for the 40th anniversary during the next 12 months? Because I imagine it's probably going
sure.
to be a big deal.
Yeah, on the 13th, I'm going to have a conversation with blueswoman Libby Ray Watson. She's going to tell a lot of stories about basically some of her mentors, like Sam Chapman of the Mississippi Sheiks, Big Joe Williams,
Nice,
uh, Lillian McMurray, the founder and owner of Trumpet Records, the independent record label in Jackson, Mississippi in the 1950s. It was the first label to record Sonny Boy Williamson, Sonny Boy 2,
okay,
Elmore James, and others. And she's going to play some music. And then I'm going to talk about the history of the Blues Archive that
nice,
day. And then we're going to end the 13th with there's a band here called Afrosippi that's a really cool uh, group. There's a musician here in town, Gilel Kumba. He's from Senegal in West Africa, and he and Kenny Kimbrough is going to be playing drums with him. This is like a
wow,
fusion of music from Senegal and North Mississippi Hill Country blues. Really cool stuff. So
nice.
they're playing. Um, we're working out details now. Elijah Wald, the author, is going to be here in November. He's going to give a talk. I'm working to bring in some other speakers and performers. We're still nailing down the dates that it's going to happen all throughout the rest of 2024 and through 2025 as well. So we're going to have a full year of
Nice.
celebrations. And the best way, since I don't have the dates nailed down right now, is to just check in with our website, find us, and we're going to have all the stuff posted there since we get
Well,
it
I'll tell you what,
nailed down.
looks like an exciting lineup coming up. And I know I'm excited to hopefully get down there. My goal is to get down there next spring. That's the
Yeah,
plan. And be able to take a little look around and meet you in person and thank you properly. But I
yeah,
want you to know that I've also been working as um, I guess, as an extended arm of University of Mississippi's Blues Archive, because I think there's a lot of people out there that really need to consider donating some of their stuff to your collection. I mean, there's several photographers that I've spoken with.
Mhm.
There's also several musicians that I've spoken with about, getting some early music put in. And I don't know. I want to see this grow. I want to see it continue to flourish. And as you said, be here for another 40 years. But for the person that wants to reach out to you, maybe they feel they've got something of value to donate to the archive, Greg, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Absolutely. I think the best way is just to through email, just contacting um, the department. It's archives, DEPT, like archives department at olemiss.edu. It's OLEMISS.edu. That's the best way. Just contact me through email and then we could start a conversation that way. And then, donations are the backbone of everything here. Um, this is why we exist.
Yes, sir.
I mean, yeah, there's, oh my gosh, so many different donors over the years have given anything from just a single item. Somebody has a really cool concert ticket or a poster or a flyer somewhere, some photos. To very large collections that show up, in an 18-wheeler. uh, so, and everything in between. Um, so yeah, I think that's the best way. Just send us an email and we'll start a conversation.
Very good. And if anybody wants to go visit your website, go ahead and throw that out there as well.
Sure. Our sometimes our email addresses and all of that can be a little long. So the easiest way, use the search engine of your choice, and you can just search for Blues Archive. We're probably going to be at the top of the list. But if not, the longer, I wish we had a shortened email address, but it's libraries.olemess.edu/special collections pages /the Blues Archive. There's no way you're going to remember that. Um, so I think it's the easiest thing is probably just to type into your favorite search engine and just Blues Archive, and we'll be hopefully at the top of that list.
And we will absolutely put the information up on the description section of our episode so that people can link to it directly from there if they would like as well. For Greg Johnson, what an honor. Thank you so much for your time and for taking the time out of your day to join me today on Time Signatures. I really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate it, sir.
Well, I really appreciate it, Ervin. We're happy to have your program here as part of the archive now as well. And it will
And
be a
I'll tell
growing
you,
collection. So,
yeah, absolutely. And season one was great because it was the kickoff. Season two was fun, but season three, man, I got Walter Trout, Joe Bonamassa. I got names that I can't even tell you right now because they're coming up. But we are just continuing to seek out everybody and anybody that we can to get in and get the interviews and capture some of those stories. And that's the most fun part of my job.
yeah. Oh, you know what? I can I add one more thing, Irv?
Sure, yeah.
I was thinking, a lot of times blues fans, you would love to go out and find, see an original Robert Johnson 78 or Charlie Patton 78. Unless you happen to know a blues collector who's just lucky enough or wealthy enough or both to have one of those in their collections, you're not going to find one of those there, or there's a very slim likelihood. Archives like ours are places where the public can come and you can physically see these things here on display. So I think that's another powerful aspect of archives like ours. So.
One more question I wanted to ask you. Now, when they come in and they say they want to look at some of BB King's collection, you have a means to play that they
Yes.
can put it on a turntable and
Absolutely. We have listening stations, we have turntables, we can play most formats up here. Now there are
that just made
some
it that just made it 100 times more cool.
oh yeah. There are some recordings that are just maybe too rare or too fragile where you can't handle that physically.
Sure.
but we will often have a digitized version of that. You can hear it.
Yep.
Because we just can't have everybody coming in here and putting a needle onto a Robert Johnson. It's just,
Yeah. No, I understand
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
All right, Greg. Well, listen, I appreciate your time once again. And that wraps up this edition of Time Signatures with Jim Ervin. Once again, my sincere thanks to the head of special collections, Professor Greg Johnson, and most importantly, to you, our viewers, our listeners, our subscribers. For without you, none of this would be possible. Jim Ervin reminding you that keeping the blues alive is everyone's responsibility, but preserving the history of the blues one story at a time, that's my mission. Until next time, so long.
This has been Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan. For more information on cabs, visit capitalareablues.org. You can find this episode and past episodes at lccconnect.org. The Time Signatures theme song, Michigan Roads, is used by permission and was written by Root Doctor, featuring Freddie Cunningham.
You know I'm trying, baby, driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
Until next time, keep on keeping the blues alive.